The knife taps the cutting board when his screen glows a tiny sound that splits the room in half. I stand at the edge of the kitchen just out of the warm circle cast by the overhead light and watch the reflection of the blade flicker each time his hand moves. The air smells like garlic and butters small comforts that suddenly feel dishonest in ways I can't quite name yet. The sizzle from the pan is steady rhythmic, the sort of sound that usually makes me relax after a long day. But tonight, something in the pattern feels wrong, like the room itself is holding its breath, waiting for me to notice what's been hiding in plain sight. The glow on his phone screen brightens again, casting a soft halo over the counter, and the knife glare bounces off the metal edge as if the room is trying to signal me toward the one thing he's pretending not to see. He doesn't look up. He doesn't shift. He just keeps chopping as if nothing in the world could be important enough to pull him out of this moment. But I feel it. The tension, the subtle tightening in his shoulders, the too casual way he angles his body to shield the phone. The knife taps again. A beat too sharp. A hair too loud. He's trying to maintain normal, but the smallest details betray him, and I feel my pulse align with the rhythm of the tapping speeding slightly each time the sound fails to match the movement. I step forward, the quiet scrape of my sock on the floor softer than the shifting breath inside my chest. The screen brightens again more insistently this time, and something in his posture stutters. He doesn't read it right away. He doesn't need to. I see the way his eyes flick toward the light even if his head doesn't move. When he finally shifts, the glow catches the knife again, reflecting a thin, sharp line across the counter, slicing the space between us like a warning. I don't speak. I don't ask. I don't need to. The message is still there unopened, waiting, persistent, warm in a way the room isn't. He reaches for a handful of herbs, tossing them into the pan with practiced ease, pretending nothing tugs at the corner of his awareness. But I notice the way his breath pauses each time the phone pulses. I notice everything. The kitchen feels smaller, the walls closing in with each vibration from the counter. My fingers brush the edge of the cold tile as I move closer, grounding myself without drawing attention. I tell myself I'm imagining it, that I'm letting exhaustion twist something ordinary into something sharp. But the air has shifted, and I feel it the way you feel the first drop of pressure before a storm breaks. The screen lights again, a soft rectangle of color against the darkened part of the counter. This time I see the preview of a message only a few words before it fades, but enough for the heat in my chest to turn into something colder, something cleaner, something final. I take 2 more steps. He doesn't turn. Maybe he doesn't hear me. Maybe he does. Maybe he's hoping I'll walk away. The knife gleams again when he shifts his grip, scattering light across the counter before it disappears into the shadow beneath his wrist. The sound of the tap rises and falls, each beat slicing into my patience with surprising precision. I stop right behind him close enough to feel the warmth from the stove and the slight tremor in his elbow as the message arrives again. The screen glows. His name flashes on the top bar, and beneath it the words that tighten the room until every breath becomes an act of force. 3 words. Words that do not belong in my kitchen, in my home, in the light reflected from the knife he's holding. I miss you. Not from me. Not for me. The glow pulses again. He hesitates. Just for a second. But a second is enough. My hand moves before thought can intervene, sharp and decisive, slipping past his arm and closing around the phone with a clarity that feels like instinct. The motion is clean, controlled, more certain than anything I've done in weeks. His breath catches. The knife stops mid-tap. The pan hisses its disapproval as the rhythm breaks. I don't look at him. I don't need to. The screen warms my palm, the message still open, sitting there in the quiet glow, as if daring me to demand the truth he's been avoiding. The room holds still. Every sound folds inward, the sizzle, the hum of the overhead light, the sudden quiet in his chest. I lift the phone to eye level, letting the glow settle across my face, illuminating a truth that has been waiting far longer than I realized. I don't say his name. I don't whisper a word. I just let the light spread across my features while the moment stretches, thins, then snaps into something irreversible. The knife in his hand glints frozen midair, reflecting the same glow that now burns in my palm. And in that reflection, I see everything the room has been trying to show me. The message, the lie, the fracture. The truth finally uncloaked by the glow he tried to ignore. I breathe once steady and slow. The phone feels heavier now, not because of the device, but because of the meaning pressed into the message it carries. When I finally turn to face him, the air tightens around us, the room no longer pretending to be warm or welcoming. The glow from the screen lingers between us like a thin, unyielding line. The part ends here, suspended the heat from the stove, fading against the cold, certainty settling into my chest, the entire world balanced on the weight of the words I've just read. I'm Melissa Hart, 36, an elementary school teacher from Portland, Oregon, and the morning before everything cracked open felt so normal it almost embarrasses me now to remember how gently it all unfolded. I didn't wake up expecting any kind of fracture. I didn't feel a storm building. I just moved through the routine that keeps my days predictable, brushing my teeth while the kettle warmed, packing my lunch in the same soft blue container I've used for years, slipping my work shoes into my bag so I could wear comfortable flats during the drive. The fridge hums behind me with its steady low vibration, the signature sound of a home that feels lived in and safe. Even now, when I think back on it, that hum seems like the room's attempt to whisper something I wasn't ready to hear. He sits at the table, scrolling his phone while I make breakfast, his thumb moving in smooth, rapid strokes. I notice him angle the screen slightly away from me, but I tell myself he's just shielding it from the overhead light. I don't have the energy to decode every gesture. I'm used to small privacy habits. Everyone needs space. Still, when the screen brightness flickers briefly, catching on the edge of his coffee mug, it draws my attention long enough for a quiet discomfort to settle at the back of my mind. The screen glare lingers where it shouldn't. Those words float through me now, but at the time it was only a fleeting impression, a tiny shift in the air I pushed aside without thought. I wish I could say I felt something deeper, some warning that deserved more than a second glance, but the truth is I didn't. The fridge hum fills the silence when neither of us speaks. I'm slicing fruit for my lunch when he clears his throat as if preparing to tell me something, but then he stops, choosing instead to get up and adjust the stove knob even though it's already off. The small, unnecessary action stands out, but I don't linger on it. I put my cut fruit into a small container and snap the lid shut. He moves behind me close enough for me to feel the warmth of his presence and kisses my shoulder before grabbing his keys. Another normal moment. Another easy lie woven into the rhythm of our morning. At school, the day unfolds with predictable chaos: a spilled paint cup during art time, a student losing a shoe during recess, a minor argument over whose turn it is to feed the class fish. These are the things I know how to handle. These are the problems with answers. I feel grounded there in a way I don't always feel at home. But even in the familiar rush of the day, small memories of the morning drift back to me. The angled phone, the too quick adjustment of the stove, the way he lingered over his coffee with his thumb tapping the screen in a slow, thoughtful pattern, pausing only when he noticed I was looking. I try not to build meaning from scraps, but something about the way his eyes flickered earlier presses against the edges of my thoughts. During my lunch break, I sit in the teacher's lounge, the fridge hum echoed faintly by the older appliance against the far wall, and I feel a hitch in my breathing when I remember the light on his screen brightening his face in that early morning glow. The glare wasn't strong, just a soft shimmer, but it clung to his expression more tightly than usual, like a thin film between his features and the truth behind them. Back then, I shrugged it away, telling myself I was sensitive, tired, reading shadows where none existed. That's the thing about silence, it grows. Every unspoken worry widens into a space that fills with possibilities, and I've always been the kind of person who fills those spaces with hope instead of suspicion. Maybe that's why I missed the signs. Or maybe I didn't miss them at all. Maybe I simply refused to interpret them. When I got home later that afternoon, the house greeted me with the same fridge hum, steady and familiar, grounding me for a moment before the weight of the silence settled again. The rooms felt undisturbed, ordinary, untouched by anything sharp or wrong. I set my bag down, took off my shoes, walked into the kitchen for a glass of water. The fridge hum deepened as the compressor kicked in a soft mechanical sigh that somehow made the empty room feel full. I stood there for a long moment, fingertips against the cool countertop, listening to the hum, the faint click of the ceiling fan, the distant sound of a car passing outside. I thought I was just tired. I thought the unease silencing my thoughts was just leftover tension from the school day. But now, with everything I know, I can see it clearly. The day before was already shifting beneath my feet. The signs were there, small and sharp, hiding in the quiet spaces of our home. And I stood in the middle of it all, listening to the fridge hum, while the truth waited just out of sight, waiting for the moment when I would finally stop pretending not to see it. The part ends here. The hum lingering, the memory holding its breath. Everything balanced on details I ignored until it was too late. The afternoon light stretches thin across the living room when I get home earlier than planned, the kind of pale brightness that makes everything feel slightly unreal. School had closed early due to district meetings, leaving me with unexpected hours I didn't quite know how to fill. The house feels too still when I walk in, the silence wrapping around me in a way that should be comforting, but instead makes my skin prickle. I set my keys down and pour a glass of water, placing it on the counter without thinking. The trembling glass catches my attention only because the vibration isn't strong enough to justify the shimmer in its surface. I don't feel anything shaking beneath my feet, so the faint ripple unsettles me more than it should. Then I hear the soft, familiar buzz of his phone from the hallway, the sound muffled by distance but unmistakable in tone. I tell myself not to assume anything. I tell myself not to move toward it. I move anyway. The floor creaks lightly as I walk toward the bedroom, and the air feels heavier with each step. He's home, which surprises me more than it should. His schedule usually keeps him out until 6. He's muttering to himself, rummaging through a drawer, clearly unaware I'm back. When his phone lights up on the hallway table, I see the preview before he does a screenshot. Not an image he took, but one sent to him. I don't see the content, only the timestamp. Ref just MX22, 07:43 p.m., burning itself into my awareness like a tiny spark. It feels out of place, too precise for casual conversation, and it immediately hooks onto something he said last night I barely texted anyone. The trembling glass in the kitchen vibrates again, faint but insistent, as if echoing the sudden shift inside me. I step back into the living room before he notices me, pretending I've just arrived, calling out his name with an exaggerated casualness I don't feel. He appears in the doorway, surprised phone in hand. His smile flickers as if his expression needs a moment to catch up to the situation. "You're home early?" he asks, slipping his phone into his pocket a moment too fast. I watch the motion, the slight hesitation in his arm, the way he keeps his hand close to the phone afterward like he's guarding it. The glass trembles again when I pick it up, my fingers tightening around it as I take a slow sip to steady myself. He talks quickly, explaining that he came home to grab something he forgot, that work has been chaotic. His voice is too breezy, too light, floating above the tension I can feel rising between us. I ask nothing. I only nod, but the timestamp loops in my mind with quiet insistence. When he steps away to take a call, a real one or a manufactured one. I can't tell I catch a glimpse of his phone screen as it lights again. This time, the full message preview appears, but not long enough for me to read anything meaningful. What I do catch is the tone informal, familiar, too easy in its phrasing. When he returns, he tries to act unaffected, but he contradicts himself almost immediately. First, he says he wasn't on his phone last night. Then in the same breath, he clarifies that he was messaging a coworker about a work update. Just logistics, he adds with a laugh that hits the air wrong. Nothing interesting. But I'm not thinking about interesting. I'm thinking about the trembling glass, the screenshot with its precise timestamp, the quick shift in his expression when he realized I'd seen the phone light up. My mind sorts through the scattered pieces. Small things, quiet things I might have ignored on any other day, and I feel the first fracture open inside me. Not loud, not dramatic, just a clean, thin line of understanding. I carry the glass back to the sink, and when I set it down, it trembles one last time before becoming perfectly still. He stands behind me, waiting for me to ask something. I don't. The silence grows dense, pressing against the walls like fog. I hold the moment quietly, letting the knowledge settle without speaking it yet. The truth isn't sharp enough to cut me open, not yet, but it's sharp enough to draw a boundary, a line I now know I will cross. The part ends here with the timestamp pulsing through my thoughts, and the trembling glass finally steady while everything else inside me begins to shift out of place. The air outside feels colder than it should when I open the front door, the porch light flickering in a way that makes the night look uneven, as if the world itself is bracing for what's about to happen. I stand in the doorway holding his phone, the words, "I miss you," still burned into my vision, even though the screen has gone dark. He lingers behind me, his breath shallow, his posture rigid with the kind of fear that comes from not knowing which part of the truth I've already seen. I send the message before he can stop me. "Come prove it." Prove it, and the instant the text delivers, there's a heaviness in the air, a quiet snap in the space between us. He stares at me, frozen as if hoping I'm bluffing. I'm not. When headlights sweep across the driveway minutes later, he moves to block the doorway, but I shift to the side before he can plant himself there. The angle of his shoulders tightens, the first sign of panic creeping through him. His eyes flick sharply toward the approaching car, then back to me, and that subtle, involuntary flick becomes evidence number 2 before either of us speaks. Behind him, I see the neighbor through his half-closed curtain pretending not to look, but failing completely. The public scene begins before the confrontation even starts. Her car door opens with a soft thunk, and she steps out with a planner clutched in her hand, the sticky note tucked beneath its cover catching my eye immediately. The faint perfume rising from the paper is unmistakable, the same scent that brushed past me earlier when I stood too close to my husband. She hesitates when she sees me instead of him, confusion tightening her expression into something small and fragile. "You said to come," she says, her voice too careful. She glances over my shoulder at him, searching for direction, but he doesn't move, his breath stuttering in a barely controlled rhythm. The sticky note flutters as she shifts the planner from one hand to the other, its bright yellow edge practically glowing in the porch light. I notice the number written in the corner, number 14B, though I don't yet know its significance. I ask her what she meant by, "I miss you," and she freezes, caught between loyalty, fear, and the sudden awareness that she's walked directly into the truth with no script to follow. His shoulder twitches, his eyes flick again, evidence stacking itself quietly, relentlessly. She starts to speak but stops halfway, her gaze darting between us, as if trying to choose which version of herself to become. Then she says something she shouldn't. "He told me you were working late tonight." The words land without warning, a small but devastating misstep that opens the first real tear in their story. He stiffens, face draining, and the breath that escapes him sounds almost like a plea. The neighbor shifts behind the curtain, leaning closer, making the moment heavier, brighter, sharper. I take a step out onto the porch, the sticky note's faint perfume pulling the truth into focus. She knows his schedule. She knows more than she should. She came faster than anyone would for a simple misunderstanding. The night air pulses with tension, the space holding all 3 of us in a trapped triangulation. He finally speaks, but his voice breaks on the first word, and whatever excuse he attempts collapses under the weight of the trembling moment. I stand in the doorway, the sticky note glowing faintly between us, the public scene unfolding in slow, relentless detail, and the scent settles in me, cold and clean. This is only the beginning of what they've tried to hide. The part ends here, the porch light flickering once more, as if reacting to the fracture widening in the space we share. The house feels too warm the moment I step back inside, as if the walls themselves are trying to seal in the tension that spilled across the porch. I close the door behind me, shutting out the night and the sight of the coworker lingering uncertainly near her car, and for a moment the quiet presses against my chest like a weight. He follows a few seconds later, his footsteps, uneven, hesitant, a rhythm that doesn't belong to someone innocent. I walk toward the living room, trying to steady my breathing, but the air feels tight and strangely thick, as if the silence has grown teeth. The misaligned photo frame on the hallway wall catches my attention when I pass it. It hangs slightly crooked, tilted just enough to look wrong without seeming intentional. I pause in front of it, staring at the skewed angle, feeling something in my chest mirror the imbalance. It's such a small thing, barely noticeable on any other day, but tonight it feels like a symbol carved directly into the air, a quiet confession from the house that the truth inside it has slipped out of alignment. I reach out and straighten the frame without thinking, my fingers brushing the wood lightly before dropping back to my side. It settles into place with a soft click that makes the room feel momentarily steadier, though nothing in my life is actually steady anymore. He hovers near the doorway, watching me with an expression caught between confusion and calculation. His eyes dart to the couch, the floor, the hallway, everywhere except my face. He's trying to anticipate what I saw, what I know, how much room he has left to lie. I don't give him anything. I walk to the couch and sit down, opening my palm to reveal his phone still warm from where I held it outside. He swallows hard, then moves toward me slowly, still searching for a lie that can survive this moment. I don't speak. I unlock the phone using the code I've known for years, but never needed until now. The screen opens instantly, offering a cascade of messages, timestamps, and fragments of a reality he's tried to keep hidden. I don't scroll. Not yet. I go straight to the message log, the one he swore was innocent. I look for the 07:43 p.m. entry, the one connected to the screenshot I glimpsed earlier. It's there, but the minute after it, 07:44 p.m. is missing, completely. Not a blank entry, not a delay in reception, not a glitch. A missing minute. A gap. A deliberate absence where a message should be. Evidence number 3 sits inside that silence, heavier than any words he's tried to use to cover the truth. I stare at the missing minute for so long the numbers start to blur. When I finally look up, he's already watching me, waiting for the question he pretends he doesn't know I'm forming. Why is this missing? I ask, my voice low, steady, sharper than I expect. He blinks twice. Too quick. Too precise. He opens his mouth and the lie arrives with practiced ease. I must have been away from my phone then. I tilt the screen toward him, letting him see the exact time he claimed earlier, the time he insisted he wasn't texting, the time that now glows like a wound in the middle of the log. You said you weren't on your phone, I say. You said you barely texted. His jaw tightens. I didn't. I mean, I wasn't. Not really. But the timestamp says otherwise. He steps back, rubbing the back of his neck, the gesture rehearsed but brittle. Maybe the app glitched, he says. Phones do that sometimes. The lie is thin, transparent. A sheet of glass cracked straight down the middle. I rise from the couch, slowly holding the phone between us, the missing minute pulsing like a heartbeat. I can feel the weight of everything he's not saying. I can feel his fear rising in uneven waves. The misaligned frame behind me sits perfectly straight now, but the imbalance between us grows sharper with each second. He tries a new angle. Look, maybe she texted and I didn't reply. Maybe that's all it is. But why is the log missing? I don't know. He snaps, voice cracking under pressure. Maybe it didn't load. But I heard the vibration. I saw the preview. I saw the way his face changed before he smoothed it back into something neutral. My thoughts sharpen, cutting cleanly through the fabric of confusion. The trembling glass from earlier feels like a warning I failed to understand in time. And now the missing minute sits between us like an unanswered demand. I step closer to him, holding the phone steady, refusing to let him slip away from the truth. You said you weren't near your phone. But the log says otherwise. You're reading too much into this, he whispers. It's a mistake. So is lying. Something in his expression collapses, then not fully, not enough to reveal anything true, but enough to show he's running out of stories that fit. His breathing grows uneven. His gaze flicks toward the door, toward the porch, toward the memory of the coworker's perfume clinging to the sticky note. He's trapped in the web of his own contradictions, tightening with every sentence he offers. When he speaks again, his voice is a whisper of desperation. "Can't you trust me?" I laugh a sound without humor. Trust isn't a magic trick. You don't get to break it and then ask for it back. He flinches. The house goes silent. Even the air feels suspended. I lower the phone and look at him directly, watching how he searches my face for softness, for surrender, for any version of me he can still manipulate. But there's nothing left to find. The truth is rising too fast, and the missing minute is the fault line running straight through us. His mouth opens to offer another lie, but I silence him with a single sentence, quiet and precise. What happened in that minute? His face drains. He knows the walls have shifted. He knows I'm not asking anymore. I'm uncovering. He steps back, his heel brushing the baseboard, and the misaligned frame clicks faintly against the wall as if reacting to the shift in air. The part ends in that moment, the tension coiling clean and sharp, the missing minute sitting between us like a truth he no longer knows how to bury. The kitchen feels colder when I walk back in, as if the air itself has withdrawn from the heat of the stove and settled into something thinner, sharper, aware that the truth is inching closer to the surface, whether he's ready for it or not. He follows me slowly, his steps uneven, the space between us stretching wider with every breath he tries to steady but can't. I don't look at him yet. I move toward the counter, my eyes catching something near the trash can. A small crumpled piece of paper wedged between the floorboard and the bin's edge. It's nothing at first glance, just another scrap in a home full of everyday clutter. But tonight, nothing is just anything. I kneel down and pull it free, the crumpled paper unfolding stiffly in my hand as if reluctant to reveal what's written on it. The ink is smudged at the corner, the fold lines still fresh, the creases so recently pressed that I can feel the tension in the paper. This wasn't thrown away earlier. This wasn't old. Someone handled it not long before I came into the kitchen. I stand slowly holding the crumpled paper against the light above the stove. The glare sharpens over the note's edge, slicing across the uneven surface and turning the small scrap into something that feels larger, heavier, undeniable. The motif echo lands without effort. The reflection a quiet confirmation that the truth is no longer hiding, it's shining. His breath catches behind me when he sees what I'm holding, and that is its own confession. I smooth the paper open, and the smell hits me first. A faint lingering trace of perfume. Floral with a sharp sweetness, the same scent that clung to the sticky note tucked into the coworker's planner earlier. The same scent I smelled when she stepped onto my porch. The same scent that brushed against him when she leaned in too close. I don't need to guess anymore. Evidence number 4 sits in the palm of my hand, woven through ink, paper, and scent. A sticky note number 14B scribbled faintly in the corner, a tiny identifier that matches the note peeking out of her planner. The match is exact. He knows it. I know it. She knows it too, though she's no longer here to witness this unraveling. He steps forward, voice catching in his throat. Hands half lifted as if he wants to stop me from reading. Stop me from seeing. Stop the truth from folding itself into words. But he's far too late for that. It's nothing he says, but the words fall dead in the air, stripped of weight and meaning. It's a reminder from work. Just something she gave me. Why was it in the trash? I ask, my voice low, steady, sculpted by the clarity that only betrayal can shape. He hesitates, eyes shifting to the side. I threw it away earlier. It's still warm, I say. You didn't throw this away earlier. You threw it away when you heard her car pull up. His face tightens a muscle near his jaw, twitching the same behavioral tell I've been tracking since the public scene on the porch. He doesn't deny it. He just tries to breathe around the tightening loop of evidence pulling closer around him. I unfold the note fully. The handwriting isn't mine. It's rounder, quicker, familiar in the way of someone who writes many small messages. Perfume clings to the paper like a fingerprint. The ink is slightly smeared at the corner, as if someone tried to fold it quickly or tear it off in a rush. Where did this come from, I ask. It's just work stuff, he insists again, a weaker version of the lie he's used 4 times already tonight. She leaves notes like that for everyone. I hold the paper out. Then why does it smell like her perfume? His silence is louder than anything he could have said. The room thickens, the air pulling at itself, contracting into something tight and unforgiving. The fridge clicks behind us. The light above the stove flickers. And for a moment it feels like the entire house is exhaling around us, tired of carrying the weight of all the things he's tried so desperately to hide. He reaches out instinctively as if to take the paper from my hand, but I pull it back, letting the glare slice over it again, highlighting the creases, the faint shimmer on the smudged ink, the pieces of a truth he can no longer mask. This was in your jacket, I say quietly. Not on your desk, not in your bag. With you. I didn't want you to see it, he admits, finally. Voice so soft it barely escapes him. Not because of what it means, I say, but because of what it confirms. His shoulders sag, the shape of someone who knows the edges of every lie he's told are now cutting him instead of protecting him. The silence gap between us widens, heavy, unbreathable. And then a new thought strikes me, something sharp, precise, carving through the fog inside my mind. The paper isn't just recent. It's fresh. Too fresh. When did she write this, I ask. His eyes flick again. Right, left, then down. A tell. A crack. A confession he can't speak. Today I push. He swallows hard. Earlier, he whispers, before you came home. But earlier, he said he hadn't seen her today. Earlier, he said he'd barely spoken to her. Earlier, he claimed he didn't even text her during the time stamped on the logs. Everything he's said is collapsing under the weight of a single piece of crumpled paper. I look down at the note again and trace its edges with my thumb, feeling the truth pressed into every fold. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't accidental. This was deliberate, intentional, concealed, hurried. He watches me with the expression of someone waiting for a verdict, someone hoping the sentence hasn't already been handed down. But it has. Not by me. By the evidence. By the timeline. By the fresh creases in my hand. The air pulses sharp and cold. He takes one slow step toward me, voice thin, strained. Can't we just talk about this? We are talking, I say. You're just not telling the truth. The crumpled paper softens slightly as my grip loosens, the ink catching the glare again, reflecting a truth he can't outrun any longer. This is spike number 2. This is the moment everything tilts. The part ends with me standing under the harsh kitchen light, the crumpled note glowing faintly in my fingers, and him staring at it like it's the blade that finally split the last lie he had left to offer. The hallway feels narrower when I step toward the front of the house, the weight of the crumpled note still lingering in my fingertips, as if the paper left an imprint on my skin. He trails behind me with a stiffness that makes every movement look rehearsed, as though he's trying to reposition himself in a story that's already slipped out of his control. I stop when I notice the front door not fully closed, but resting slightly ajar, the sliver of darkness outside, cutting into the warm interior light like a thin blade. The slightly ajar door becomes a presence all on its own, a quiet witness to whatever passed between him and her before I entered the kitchen. I step closer and press my palm lightly against the wood, feeling the faint draft slipping through the gap. It's enough to make the hairs on my arms rise, not from cold, but from confirmation. He claimed he shut it firmly. He claimed no one else came inside. He claimed their conversation was nothing. The door disagrees with all of it. Before I can say anything, the neighbor's voice rises from the yard next door, a casual call like he's only now realizing he should acknowledge me after watching the earlier scene unfold. He steps out onto his porch wearing a hoodie and holding a mug. His expression caught between concern and harmless curiosity. "Hey," he says, nodding toward the door. "It was open earlier. Thought you were getting a delivery or something." My husband stiffens behind me. I don't turn to look at him. What time, I ask, my voice calm but stripped of softness. The neighbor shrugs lightly. "Around 7:01, I think. I remember because I checked the thermostat, my phone was right there. 07:51 p.m. A time that sits directly in the window he claimed he'd been alone. A time that contradicts the missing minute, the sticky note, the panic in his voice. Evidence number 5 lands effortlessly, sliding into place, like the next stone in a path he didn't realize he was building for me. My husband steps forward quickly, too quickly, his voice lined with forced casualness. "I must have forgotten to close it. I was grabbing something from the car." "No," the neighbor says, shaking his head slowly. "You opened it." She walked up right after. He isn't trying to be accusatory. He's just describing what he saw. But sometimes the truth sounds like a blade even when spoken gently. The neighbor squints at my husband, then looks at me. "Everything okay?" My husband inhales too sharply. "Yeah," he says, but his voice thins at the edges, cracking under the pressure of being observed. His eyes flick not at me this time, but toward the gap in the door, as if the truth were slipping through it and he could still catch it if he moved fast enough. "Did you see anything else?" I ask the neighbor. He hesitates, not wanting to step into something private but already entangled in it. "Well, I did see you hand something to her," he says slowly. "Looked small. Not sure what it was. She gave you something too." The world narrows. The draft from the open door chills the back of my neck as if the house itself is reacting. I turn to look at my husband finally, and the panic in his eyes is no longer subtle. It's raw, tightening every muscle in his face. His mouth opens, but nothing comes out. He tries again, but the words stick tangled in the web of contradictions he spun too quickly to keep track of. "It wasn't he," starts. But I cut him off with quiet precision. "What did you give her?" His breathing falters. "Nothing important." "What did she give you?" He swallows hard, throat bobbing. Just a note, he whispers. "Not the crumpled one I found. Not number 14B. Another one." Something else exchanged at the door he swears he closed at a time he swears he was alone, while the neighbor watched from behind a half-closed curtain like an unwilling keeper of truth. The silence between us grows thick, a silence that no longer protects him but exposes him. I push the door fully shut, the latch clicking with finality, sealing the house around us, while the truth continues to swell inside the shrinking space. He looks at the floor, shoulders folded, the posture of someone realizing the story is slipping too far from his grasp to pull back. I look at the door thinking about what passed through it, what words, what objects, what intentions, and what else I didn't see. The part ends here, with the neighbor stepping quietly back inside the slightly ajar door, now fully closed, and the truth pressing inward heavier than the air we breathe. The cold countertop meets my palms when I brace myself against it, the temperature slipping into my skin, steadying me in a way nothing else in this house can right now. The kitchen feels wider and emptier than before, stretched thin by the weight of every contradiction that stacked itself between us. He lingers near the doorway, his breath, uneven eyes darting not with calculation this time, but with a kind of restless desperation, as if he still hopes the truth can be patched together with whatever scraps of explanation he hasn't burned through yet. I lift my hands from the counter only when I feel ready, only when my breathing settles into something that won't crack the moment I speak. He watches me too closely, the panic in him no longer subtle. It hangs on him visibly, clinging to his posture, his breathing the trembling beat beneath his throat. But I don't look at him. Not yet. I turn toward the jacket he discarded earlier on the dining chair. It dips slightly on one side, as if weighed down unevenly. I don't know what draws me to it. Instinct, distrust, gravity, but my steps feel inevitable. When I slip my hand inside the pocket, my fingers brush against a small rectangle of paper, not folded, not hidden deep, just careless enough to prove intention. I pull it out slowly, and the cold countertop behind me seems to breathe in with me as I read the print across the narrow slip. A lunch receipt, $12.80, reference L07. The timestamp is unmistakable, exactly during the hours he claimed he hadn't seen her, hadn't eaten with her, hadn't done anything except work through meetings that lasted all afternoon. Except the receipt says otherwise. The receipt says he sat somewhere at a small table, with someone who orders light meals, someone who leans in when she laughs, someone who writes notes, someone whose perfume lingers on paper. Evidence number 6 lands clean and precise, sliding into place with a clarity that erases any hope he had of hiding behind coincidence. I turn slowly, holding the receipt between 2 fingers. His eyes widen the moment he recognizes it, the moment he understands that this isn't something he can explain away with the same shaky lies he's been patching together. It's just lunch, he says quickly, too quickly the words tripping over themselves. A group lunch, we all went, it wasn't just. Who else was there? I ask. He hesitates. A hesitation is an answer. We all went? He repeats quieter now, shrinking into the lie, as if smaller words will somehow make it more plausible. Name them, I say. Silence. Knife-edge silence. The kind that slices cleanly through pretense and exposes everything he's too afraid to say out loud. He swallows, glancing toward the door as if escape might be waiting on the other side. But the house feels sealed now, every exit closed by the truth pressing inward. It wasn't like that, he tries again. We just grabbed food. It didn't mean anything. The receipt rests lightly between my fingers, but the weight of it drops into the room like a stone. "You told her I was working late," I say, and she believed it enough to repeat it. He blinks hard. "I didn't say, 'You did,' I cut in." She wouldn't have assumed that on her own. His posture buckles. His breath stutters. The receipt pinches between my fingers as I hold it closer, watching the way his gaze locks onto the timestamp, like he's hoping it will rearrange itself into something innocent. It doesn't. "Why lie about the meeting?" I ask. His mouth opens, closes, then opens again, but no answer forms. "You said you were in meetings all through lunch," I continue. "You said you didn't have time to breathe." Things changed," he mutters. "Schedules shifted. I forgot. It wasn't important. But she remembered enough to meet you." His face drops, the truth scraping across his expression with visible force. He tries to step closer, but I move back instinctively, my shoulders meeting the cold countertop in a jolt of clarity. "It was just lunch," he whispers again, the repetition sounding like a plea now. Then why hide it? His eyes falter. Why lie about it? He inhales sharply. Why erase it from your story? His composure finally cracks, a visible fracture running through him, as if the truth has found a seam and broke him open from the inside. He reaches out not to touch me, but to reach for the receipt, as if taking it away might undo the reality it carries. I pull it back before his fingers can graze it. His breath shudders. His shoulders slump. His jaw trembles. And the silence that follows is heavier than any accusation. He knows I know. He knows there's no version of this left that he can control. The cold countertop presses into my spine as if anchoring me to the truth of the moment. This is the second reversal. This is the point where the last of his explanations fall apart. And he understands it because when he speaks again, his voice is barely there. "I didn't want to hurt you." "You already did," I say. The receipt hangs between us like a blade suspended in the air, its timestamp the clean cut dividing what I believed from what I know now. The part ends here with the cold countertop steadying me, while everything else inside the room tilts out of his favor, the truth now too bright and too sharp for either of us to pretend it isn't real. The microwave beep slices through the suffocating quiet, a sharp digital sound that marks the moment the room shifts from unraveling lies to confronting the hollow space where the truth should be. I didn't mean to turn it on. My hand moved on instinct, reaching for something to anchor myself. Placing a mug of water inside and pressing start, because the ritual of it felt familiar, manageable. But the beep is too bright, too invasive, too precise. It cuts the room open. He flinches at the sound, a subtle jolt running through his shoulders, as if the noise itself exposes him. I stare at the microwave door, watching my own faint reflection on its darkened surface, watching the trembling in my fingers steadied only by the coldness that's taken root inside me. When he shifts behind me, I don't turn. I don't need to. The air carries his tension like a second pulse, uneven, nervous, desperate. I open my phone instead, pulling up the HR email thread he once forwarded to me months ago when he wanted me to admire how organized his team was. The messages are still there. The schedule attachments are still there. I scroll through them slowly, deliberately aware of every tiny tightening in his breath as he watches from a few feet away. When I reach the meeting schedule for the previous week, the truth lands with such clarity that I feel my entire spine straighten. His meeting, the one he said ran from 5 to 6, the one he used as his shield, The one he insisted left him no time to eat to talk to text was scheduled for 4 and ended at 4:30. Evidence number 7 is cold, factual, unarguable. A timestamp without motive. A truth without emotion. A detail he can't bend into a softer shape. I inhale slow and even. The microwave hums behind me, counting down the seconds toward another beep. When I turn to face him, he already knows. His face goes white at the edges, his lips parting with the start of another lie, one he doesn't even have the strength to finish. It was moved, he says, but the words barely hold themselves up. The meeting changed last minute. They do that sometimes. Then why is the digital record unchanged? They didn't update it. And you didn't mention that? He swallows. I didn't think it mattered. I step closer, the HR schedule glowing on my phone like a verdict. Everything matters when you're trying to rebuild the timeline you broke. His breath hitches. He looks toward the microwave as the countdown hits 7, then 6, as if hoping the final beep will interrupt this moment, reset something inside the room, give him space to breathe a different lie. The microwave beeps again. He actually jumps this time. I move past him and pull the mug out just to stop the sound, setting it on the counter without breaking eye contact. He's cornered now, not by me, not by accusation, but by the accumulation of his own contradictions. They sit around him like walls narrowing inward, each lie tightening the space he has left to stand in. I didn't meet her after the meeting, he says suddenly too fast. I swear I didn't. I just drove around. I needed air. Then why the receipt I forgot? Why the missing minute? I don't know. Why was the door open? Maybe I left it. Why did the neighbors see you? Hand her something. His voice breaks. I don't know. The confession isn't a truth. It's a surrender, a collapse of the scaffolding he tried to build out of flimsy words and half-believable excuses. He steps backward until the backs of his legs hit the edge of a chair, and he sinks into it as if the weight of everything he's avoided has finally dragged him down. I don't sit. I don't soften. I hold the phone between us like a mirror. Your meeting ended at 4, I say. 4 hours before you said you came home. 2 hours before the message, I miss you, and right in the window where she told me you said I was working late. His eyes flick upward, glassy with panic. I didn't plan anything, he whispers. Nothing happened. It wasn't like that. Then why hide the timeline? Because you'd think something happened. I think that because something did. The silence that follows is different from every silence that's come before. It isn't the silence gap motif anymore. It's the breaking point, the moment the tension that's been stretching across each part finally snaps. He leans forward, elbows on his knees, hands pressed against his forehead. I made mistakes, he says, voice cracking. But it didn't mean anything. It meant something to her. No, she misread things. She thought she could say, I miss you. His hands fall into his lap, defeated. His voice softens to a near whisper. I didn't want her to, but you let her. The truth doesn't explode. It sinks heavy and slow, settling into the room like dust after a collapse. He tries to reach for my hand, but I step back instinctively, the rejection automatic my body remembering before my mind does. He looks at the floor, breathing unsteady, searching for the version of me who used to rush in and comfort him during arguments, who used to believe his soft explanations over my own instincts. She isn't here anymore. The microwave cools behind me, its soft internal clicks marking time more honestly than he ever did. When he finally lifts his head, his voice is cracked raw. "Tell me what you want me to say." The words land with all the cowardice of someone who wants forgiveness without confession, comfort without honesty, safety without truth. "The truth," I say. "I want the truth." He closes his eyes, his lips part, but nothing comes out. Because the truth isn't something he can twist into a shape that won't hurt him. Because the truth is no longer trapped inside a single moment. It's spread across days, across timestamps, across receipts, across doors left open and messages left glowing in the dark. Because the truth has too many witnesses now, too many pieces, too much weight. He finally whispers, "I didn't mean for it to go that far." And that not any evidence, not any discrepancy, not the missing minute, not the scent on the note that is the sentence that breaks something in me so quietly I barely feel it happen. Not that far. Not that far. Not that far. As if distance, not betrayal, is the measurement that matters. As if close is innocent. As if almost isn't still a wound. I breathe once slow. My voice comes out steady, carved clean by clarity. "You crossed the line," I say, "a long time before tonight." He opens his eyes then, and the look in them tells me he finally understands that nothing he says now can undo the shape of the truth. The part ends here, with the microwave cooling the HR timestamp burning bright in my hand, and the final inches of his denials collapsing under the weight of the reality he can no longer rewrite. The door latch click is sharper than it should be when I pull it open, the metal catching for half a second before slipping into place with a sound that seems to echo straight through the living room. It's the kind of sound that usually disappears into the background of any ordinary night, but tonight it slices cleanly into the air, announcing the shift into something public, exposed, unavoidable. He stands behind me, pale and rigid, as if the walls have closed in around him, and the only exit left is the truth he's been trying not to touch. I don't open the door for him. I open it because I hear footsteps outside, the hesitant, uneven rhythm of someone who shouldn't be here but came anyway. When I step aside, she's already on the other side of the threshold, her hand half raised like she wasn't sure if she should knock or turn around and run. Her eyes go wide when she sees me instead of him. She wasn't expecting to face me. She wasn't expecting to be summoned by a message she thought was sent by him. She wasn't expecting the weight of the night to fall on her in one clean movement. I got your text," she stammers, her planner clutched to her chest. Another sticky note peeking from the top. The scent of her perfume drifts in with her floral and sharp, a scent that now feels like a thread woven through every lie he's told. The door latch clicks again as the neighbor's door opens across the way, his presence lingering quietly on his porch, a second witness to whatever this moment intends to reveal. Public scene number 2 begins, whether anyone wants it to or not. I don't raise my voice. I don't accuse. I simply step aside enough for her to see him behind me. His expression collapses the moment their eyes meet. The truth is already visible in the air between them, hanging thick and heavy, but I'm done waiting for implication. I reach into my pocket, not for a note, not for the receipt, not for any of the fragments that formed the earlier cracks. I pull out my phone instead and open the audio file labeled RCL09. The recording symbol glows at the top of the screen as I scroll to the time marker, 03:12, the moment everything broke months before tonight, The moment I never intended to use, the moment I kept tucked away because a part of me hoped I'd never need it. But tonight is not a night for hope. Tonight is a night for clarity. The door latch clicks again as the neighbor shifts his weight, leaning slightly forward, trying not to look but unable to ignore the atmosphere pulling him in. "What's that?" she asks softly, her voice trembling. "A recording, I say. One you should hear." I press play. The sound pours into the room, my voice distant and tense, his voice cracking with something too close to confession and hers unmistakably hers in the background. Not words this time, but a tone, a familiarity, a rhythm of speech that shouldn't have existed inside my house during that argument. Her gasp is immediate. His reaction is worse. He folds inward hands, sinking into his hair as if the recording reached inside him and pulled out every lie he's tried to bury. "Turn it off," he whispers. "I don't." The moment at 03:12 arrives, her voice clear enough to cut through months of doubt. "You're not happy? You don't have to pretend with me." Her voice isn't playful, not flirty, not teasing. It's intimate, certain, comfortable. And then his reply, low and unsteady, "I know." The coworker's knees weaken. She grips the planner tighter against her chest, the sticky notes trembling with her. I didn't mean," she starts, but the words collapse beneath her breath. This wasn't supposed to." "It already did," I say. The recording continues, each second slicing through the last shreds of denial he tried to hold on to. When I finally pause it, the silence that drops into the room isn't a gap, it's a crater. He looks at her with a mixture of fear and regret, a look that confirms more than any words could. She looks at him with something like realization, like she's seeing him clearly for the first time. And then she looks at me, her eyes full of something that isn't guilt, not yet, but awareness. "You told me," she whispers to him, voice trembling, "that you were unhappy. You told me things I shouldn't have known." He presses his hands to his face. "I didn't mean it like that. Then how did you mean it?" I ask, stepping forward. He doesn't answer. The neighbor shifts again, the boards on his porch creaking, each sound reminding us all that this moment isn't happening in private anymore. She turns toward me, her face flushed with shame. "I didn't realize." But she stops. Because she did. Not fully, not cleanly, but enough to know she was stepping into something fragile. Enough to know the messages weren't harmless. Enough to know lines were thinning long before they broke. "Why did you come tonight?" I ask. She looks down at the sticky note tucked beneath her planner. "I thought he needed me." The sentence is simple. Too simple. Too revealing. He looks up sharply at her, panic widening his eyes. "I didn't say that he stammers. I didn't." "You implied it," I say. "You gave her a role in your life that didn't belong to her, and she stepped into it because you opened the door." He searches for words, but none of them fit anymore. Every explanation he might have used earlier collapses under the weight of the audio file still glowing on my phone screen. The coworker steps back, shaking her head slowly, as if she's trying to step out of the story she walked into willingly, but can't find the exit. "I should go?" she whispers. "You think I ask?" But there's no heat in my voice anymore. No sharpness. Just exhaustion and a clarity that feels almost sterile. She doesn't wait for him to speak. She turns and leaves the planner held tight against her chest, her footsteps uneven on the walkway. The neighbor lingers another second, then closes his door quietly, leaving us suspended in the hollow aftermath. The house exhales around us. The door latch clicks one last time as I push it shut, sealing the public scene behind us. Inside, he stands alone in the center of the living room, stripped of context, stripped of story, stripped of all the fabrications he used to stitch together a version of events he thought I'd accept. When he lifts his head, his face is wet. Not with grief, not with pain, but with the weight of being seen without any of the scaffolding he used to hold himself up.
"I never meant to hurt you,"
he whispers.
"Intent doesn't erase impact,"
I say. He steps forward, reaching out with a trembling hand, but I don't move toward him. I don't step back either. I just stand there, still holding the phone with the paused recording, the digital timestamp glowing like a final verdict.
"Can you forgive me?"
he asks. The question doesn't surprise me. Men who fear consequences often leap straight to forgiveness as if remorse can outrun truth. Forgiveness isn't the next step, I say quietly. Truth is. His face crumples. The audio file waits in my hand. The silence stretches, and the part ends here with the door latch settling into place, the witness gone, the lies collapsed, and the truth standing alone with nowhere left for him to hide. The metallic spoon tap is soft, almost delicate, but in the stillness of the kitchen it lands with a clarity that feels like punctuation, the end of one sentence, the beginning of another. I set the spoon down after stirring the tea. I don't really want watching the tiny circular ripple fade from the surface, as if the water itself is learning how to settle after a storm. The house is quiet now, not the heavy, suffocating quiet of uncertainty, not the trembling silence of suspicion. This quiet is clean, sterile. The kind that follows a truth finally spoken aloud, even if it was dragged into the open by force. He stands a few feet away from me, eyes swollen, breathing uneven, shoulders slumped in the posture of someone stripped bare. There's no more room for him to hide. No more lies to rearrange into softer shapes. No more invented timelines or disappearing minutes or perfume-laced notes to press flat against excuses. This is the aftermath, sharp, simple, undeniable.
"I don't know how things got this far,"
he says, voice cracked around the edges.
"I really don't."
I don't answer. His words no longer require responses. They're like old receipts, records of transactions that can no longer be undone, no matter how much anyone wishes they could be returned, refunded, exchanged for something more comfortable. The spoon tap still echoes faintly in my ears, a rhythmic reminder to stay grounded. I take a slow sip of the tea, letting the warmth move through me even if the flavor barely registers. He shifts his weight from one foot to the other, hands trembling slightly at his sides. It's the kind of trembling that comes from fear, not remorse. Fear of consequence. Fear of losing comfort. Fear of facing himself without the narrative he built. "I'll fix this," he says. "I swear I'll fix it. Whatever you want me to do, I'll do it." The desperation rings hollow. A promise made in panic is just another form of manipulation, a last attempt to hold on to something slipping away. "You can't fix something you still won't fully admit," I reply. He opens his mouth, but the silence that follows tells me everything. He doesn't know how to tell the whole truth. He only knows how to confess in half measures, how to choose versions of honesty that cost him the least. He hasn't once said the simple sentence that would cut all the way through "I crossed the line and kept crossing it." Instead, he hovers behind excuses, behind fear, behind the illusion that if he cries hard enough, if he shakes violently enough, the truth will soften. It won't. I set the tea down gently, the mug making a soft sound against the countertop. You need to leave for the night, I say. His entire body stiffens. What, you need to pack a bag and stay somewhere else? Tonight. His eyes widen, panic flaring like a match in the dark. Melissa, please. Don't kick me out. We can talk. We can sit down, and we've talked for hours, I say, and every hour revealed another lie. I need space, and you need to understand the consequences of what you've done. But this is my home. Then you should have treated it like one. He freezes as if the sentence itself hit him harder than the evidence, harder than the recording, harder than watching her walk away with shame burning across her face. He looks around the kitchen, the cutting board still out from earlier, the faint glow of the stove light, the chair he nearly collapsed into when the HR schedule shattered his last defense. Every object seems to reflect back pieces of the truth he tried to deny. Melissa. His voice breaks. I can't lose you. You already started losing me the moment you let her believe she had a place in your life that should have been mine. He presses a hand to his face, dragging his fingers down as if trying to steady himself, but the gesture looks more like someone wiping away the last traces of who they pretended to be. She meant nothing, he insists weakly. People who mean nothing don't get secret lunches or private notes or messages that need to be deleted. He winces as if the words themselves sting. I never slept with her, he whispers. I didn't physically. I don't measure betrayal by geography, I say. I measure it by intention. His chin trembles. His shoulders fold inward. He realizes then truly that I am not arguing. I am deciding, and the decision is already made. I move past him and walk to the bedroom, pulling the small luggage bag from the closet. The sound of the zipper sliding open drags him down the hallway behind me, his breath almost ragged. Please, he says, voice cracking. Don't do this. Don't make me leave. We can figure this out. I can go to therapy. We can try counseling. I'll delete her number. I'll quit my job if you want. The offers fall out of him like debris from a collapsing structure, each one built from panic, not transformation. I don't want you to quit your job, I say. I want you to take responsibility. He stands there trembling, watching as I place the luggage on the bed. Please don't pack my things, he whispers. Then you do it, I reply. If you don't pack them, you're just avoiding the consequences again. His hands shake as he reaches for the closet. He pulls shirts from hangers with jerky movements, folding them with a desperation that makes the air feel tighter. Watching him pack isn't satisfying. It isn't revenge. It isn't power. It's grief. Quiet, exhausted grief for the marriage I thought I had, for the version of him I believed in, for the trust I held like something solid. When he finishes, he stands at the foot of the bed, luggage zipped, shoulders slumped, breath uneven. Just for tonight, he asks, his voice thin as paper. For tonight, I say. And then we'll talk. But not like this. Not with you trying to outrun your own actions. He nods slowly, as if the motion itself requires strength he no longer has. When we return to the kitchen, the metallic spoon tap echoes in my mind again, a reminder of the calm I'm trying to hold on to. He looks at me one last time before he leaves. Eyes red. Lips parted like he wants to say something meaningful, but meaning requires honesty, and he's already spent every version of it he had. I'm sorry, he whispers. I nod once. Not acceptance, not forgiveness. only acknowledgement. He opens the door. The night air drifts in. The door latch clicks as he steps outside, the same sound that began this unraveling, now marking the start of an uncertain distance. When the door closes, the house expands around me, quiet but not hollow. The silence feels different, wide, breathable, understood. I return to the kitchen, lift the spoon again, and tap it lightly on the counter. The sound is small, precise, steady. Mine. The part ends here with me standing in the calm after the rupture, the metallic spoon tap fading into a quiet that finally belongs to me, no longer shaped by lies, but by the clarity that follows them. The stove light flick casts a thin, soft glow across the kitchen, flickering just once, before settling into a steady pulse, as if the house itself is exhaling after holding its breath for too long. Morning hasn't arrived yet, but the night has shifted. Its edges are calmer, its shadows less sharp. I stand barefoot on the cool tile, the silence of the house finally matching the stillness inside my chest. Present tense settles around me like a familiar coat lighter than it felt in the beginning, warmer than the uncertainty that used to live in the corners of every room. I move slowly, not out of reluctance, but out of deliberate intention. Every step, every breath, every small action feels chosen, not reactive. There's nothing left to chase, nothing left to expose, nothing left to convince myself of. The air is clear in the way it gets only after a storm, the kind of clarity that doesn't erase the debris, but lets you see exactly where it fell. The kettle sits quietly on the counter. The sink is empty. The cutting board is clean. His absence settles into these spaces with a sense of rightness, not loneliness. I don't pretend the ache isn't there. It pulses gently beneath the steadiness, a reminder of what was real and what wasn't, of what I built and what he dismantled piece by piece. But for the first time in a long time, the ache doesn't threaten to swallow me, it simply exists. And so do I. I walk to the window, fingertips grazing the frame. Beyond the glass, the street is quiet, washed in the dim glow of early nightfall. The neighbors' curtains are drawn. No one is watching now. No witnesses left to validate or pressure or confirm the story that unfolded here. The truth is fully mine, no longer something I have to hold up for anyone else to see. My phone rests on the table, face down, the recording paused on a moment that once felt like the center of the world. I don't need to replay it. I don't need to revisit the timeline, the receipts, the missing minute, or the lies that tried to weave themselves around the truth. Every piece has already settled into its rightful place, no longer scattered and sharp, but arranged in a pattern I finally understand. I pick up the mug I left out earlier, running my thumb along the rim. The house feels like a place I can move through without bracing for something to break. The quiet isn't a warning anymore. It's a landing, a re-entry, a beginning dressed in the clothing of an ending. I breathe in slowly, tasting the faint trace of last night's tea still clinging to the air. The stove light flickers again, gentle this time, like a nod from the house itself. And then the motif resolves, not because I force it, but because it arrives naturally, uncoiling into the space, like it's been waiting for permission to finish its sentence. The glare fades where the truth finally settles. And it has settled not cleanly, not perfectly, but truth rarely does. It settles the way dust does, after being thrown into sunlight, slowly, quietly revealing what was always there beneath it. I sit at the table, letting the chair legs scrape lightly against the floor, grounding me in the present. There's no script to follow from here. No instructions for how to rebuild or where to place the pieces. I only know that the next breath will come, and then the next, and that they will not be shaped by someone else's secrecy. My hands rest flat on the table, palms open, fingers relaxed. The silence expands around me in a way that feels earned, not imposed. Outside, a car passes distantly. A dog barks. The night holds steady. I think about tomorrow not with dread, not with fear, but with a quiet curiosity. Maybe he'll call. Maybe he won't. Maybe he'll want to talk. Maybe he'll want to apologize again, but those possibilities no longer dictate the landscape of my thoughts. They orbit outside of me now, no longer fused to my sense of self. I glance at the stove light again, its soft flick marking time in a rhythm that belongs to this house, to this moment to me. The weight in my chest lifts by degrees, not all at once, but enough to make space for something new, something unburdened. I stand and walk toward the sink, running the mug under warm water, letting the heat spread through my fingers. When I set it on the drying rack, the small clink echoes gently through the kitchen, a sound that feels like punctuation again, another ending, another beginning. The house no longer feels like a stage for unraveling lies. It feels like a room I can breathe in, a room I can return to, a room that belongs to me again. I turn off the stove light. The flick fades, but the clarity remains. I inhale once more, slow and even, and step forward into the quiet that no longer asks anything of me. The part ends here with the house finally still, my heartbeat steady, and the truth no longer something burning in my hands, but something resting in the air, settled, understood, and no longer mine to carry.